Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence. I noticed then there's adjustments to the agenda.
You have two adjustments to the agenda, and I added them to your agenda so you can see them under items of business, old business. We're going to add an item A, school calendar harvest break, and then under items of business, new business, add an item C, which would push down the executive session. And we're going to add the Madawaska School Department insurance bids.
Okay, on to anybody here from the public has questions? No. Well, therefore, Mr. DeShane is here. Approval of the minutes of the June 1st meeting. And did we have more than that? Did we have a May? Didn't we have a May 4th meeting approval of minutes that we had to do?
I would have to look back to see.
Or this is, no, this is, yeah, this is the minutes.
Yes, I printed them out.
They're in here. Yeah.
May 4th.
We have to do those first, right? Yeah, May 4th is the Zoom meeting, a regular meeting, May 4th at 4.
Yeah, should be June 1st.
Yeah, that date is wrong. Sorry, that should be the June.
Oh, that should have been June?
Yeah, that's the June.
Oh, that's the June, okay.
So the May 4 meeting, the
Yeah.
paperwork should be June 1st.
Yeah.
June 1st, yes.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Those are the only minutes we have? Yeah. Oh, no, we have discussion there, okay. Approval of the meetings of June 1, the minutes. I'll move that. So moved by Tammy,
Second.
second by Tom, or is that Tom or Louis? I don't know.
Me.
Tom.
Tom.
Louis, I'm gonna blame you, Louis.
I'm okay.
There any discussion on those minutes?
Just, I wasn't there for the meeting. I don't know what happened. I didn't realize there was one that day, so I apologize for not being there. On C, the school calendar. That's just to change the school calendar based on COVID and everything else.
Yeah, we had discussions about adjusting to delay the start of the school year. We had invited area farmers to come in and talk about how that impacts harvest. And the board did approve, the committee did approve a change. Tonight, I'm going to ask that we revisit that under old business, just because I have some new information to share.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else, Louis?
No, that was it. Thank you.
All those in favor of the approval of the minutes of June 1? All in favor? And now we have the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting, June 10. Can I have a motion on that?
Move we accept them.
Moved by Tom.
Moved by Tom, second. Second by Tammy. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor?
We do not have the May financials, so
No.
we'll have to table that for next time.
Yeah.
Lynn's been out for a few days, so we weren't able to get those together.
Okay, so May financials will be tabled for next meeting. Oh, recognition of use of service of school committee. That, yeah, I'm anxious to get to that one.
We told you had a speech prepared.
Huh?
We were told you had a speech prepared.
Oh, yeah, I do. Thank you and see you in the future.
I'm gonna let Giselle present a gift for your years of service.
Oh,
Mrs. Madawaska,
oh,
you have been on this board for 8 years. You began as a one-year substitute. Do you guys hear that? Those of you that are one-year substitute, 8 years later, she's here. You were more than a substitute. That first year, our budget had to go to referendum 6 times. It has not always been
That's
lovely.
how you break in a 1-year substitute.
But you've been an involved chairperson. You always come to get your homework. You sat in the office up there and you've done your homework. You've come to the meetings prepared. You were not, you were unafraid to speak up when needed. You were on subcommittees. I don't know how many hats you wore, starting from the tech center to the policy committee to negotiations, which we just finished with the teachers, and it's too bad because we're starting again with support personnel. But it's a small token to thank you for your years of service and for the hard work that you did, and we truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I wish I could give you a hug, but I really have to say something.
Good.
I have had the most pleasure working with this board. This has been a fantastic board to work with. And a lot of us are, like Tammy's been on for quite a while, Robert's been on quite a while. Louis, I just started working with you, but I enjoyed working with you. Tom came on last year, of course, he's my neighbor, so I'm used to talking to him all the time. Giselle has been fantastic to work with. I loved working with Lucy. Lucy was new this year and I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the work that I did because I found that I was being well informed by Ben, since you've been on, by Giselle when she was on. Giselle and I went through hell for a while. The first year I came, first couple of years, but it's been, and then with all the administrators, I've really, I have to say I enjoyed my work. But now I'm ready to retire, guys, so don't write me in on the ballot. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ben. And now we move on to school committee calendar, the Harvest Break old business.
So, as you know, when we discussed the school calendar last time, we had invited the local farmers to be part of that. Our farmers here in Madawaska, St. David area got kind of a late notice from us, and it was planting season when we invited them. So we did have one gentleman in attendance. And as you know, we gave our presentation, you all approved it. After that, the following week, we went to SAD 33, presented the same information, had 5 to 10 farmers in attendance there. And the farmers did speak up quite a bit with regards to things that have happened in the past where we've done extensions of harvest, allow students to work while school was going on, and the fact that they did lose quite a bit of students because the students did, or their parents, had them go to school instead of harvesting. So it did impact them negatively, and they were fearful that this would happen again if our plan to run school through harvest was approved by all the boards. At that time, the SAD 33 board members spoke in favor of harvest break, continuing with the tradition of breaking for harvest. But that board does believe they want to revisit for their elementary level students and possibly delay the start of the year for their elementary kids. But they do feel like their high school age kids should be starting as originally planned and then breaking for harvest. Fast forward again to last night, we met with the SAD 27 board. We had quite a bit of farmers in attendance at that meeting as well. And they spoke similarly to what the Frenchville St. Agatha farmers said about the fear of just losing kids if we run school through harvest. So the SAD 27 board has opted to also not change the calendar, but they want to revisit for the elementary kids as well, kind of following suit to what you guys have had for years here, where your elementary starts later than your middle high school. So I'm now in a position where I've got to ask you to possibly rethink your decision last time, because we do need a regional calendar that fits for the CTE Center. And I'm more than prepared to, go to the state and ask what happens if one of the CTE partners does not have a similar calendar as the others, I can do that on your behalf, but I think the more time goes on, and Giselle and I have had a conversation with the commissioner as early as yesterday on a Zoom chat with some other superintendents, it does look like moving forward into the new school year, the state is going to give some guidance with regional indexes that kind of separates Maine from based on your COVID-19 exposure. And northern Maine right now, especially this area here, we don't have a whole lot of exposure. So the commissioner referred to that as probably being identified as a green zone, where our restrictions will be very limited, and that school will most likely be allowed to start up. She did also explain that the department plays no role in determining whether or not a local school board decides if school reopens or doesn't. It's not the department's job to dictate that. It's local control. You guys choose if you want your schools to reopen in the fall or not. However, if the governor does issue a state of emergency or extends her state of emergency, that would trump any decisions you make. But the DOE will give guidance, and using that guidance, we feel confident that school will probably be allowed to open unless things really change drastically this summer. So we're feeling confident that for middle high school level at least, we know those students can handle a remote learning plan. We know that they can do it starting in August 20 like we planned. Maybe they'll be on site because of the regional index thing. Maybe it'll be remote learning. But if we can delay the start for definitely elementary kids to September, we think that's going to be a better plan. Right now, the conversations we're having right now is if we have to choose between which kids come to school and which kids don't, we're really thinking that the pre-K to grade 2, 3, 4 levels are those levels that really, really need to be in school, because parents are teaching them if they're not in school, whereas a middle high school student can successfully navigate a remote learning plan. So I guess in short, what I'm asking is for you to reconsider your change in the calendar, go back to what you originally had in place, which was your middle high school starting the August 22 date, and then your elementary kids starting on the September 3 date is what I'm asking from all of you.
The elementary school, that's what we had voted on a few months ago.
Correct.
Saying that we weren't changing that forward. So you're just basically asking a revision of, or.
I'm saying you were right all along, and I was wrong. And I should have never asked you to change anything. But yes, I'm asking you to revert back to your original decision.
The middle high school, just basically the middle high school.
I think there are more farmers, I think, too, in the Frenchville, St. Fort Kent area than we have.
We had quite a turnout, and it was very thoughtful. Some of them gave speeches about the history of their farms and the land ownership and the partnership about that. And obviously, we want to continue to support that local tradition. I think we could have done it really well with this remote learning plan. I'm quite confident we could have, but the perception of schooling for some people are very much geared towards their experience in school. And I don't think that many people can understand that remote learning and harvest break could have functioned together at the same time. So let's keep harvest break.
So what are the wishes of the board? Do you want to rescind our decision and go back to the original plan? I think what I was thinking when I heard about this was that we have we're working 3 communities together. We have 2 that are asking. I would hope that we would think about accommodating the majority. I basically don't have a problem going back to the original calendar, because that's what we've done all along. But it's up to the rest of you to say if you want to do that. I have no problem going back. I don't.
Be mindful that in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, things can change so drastically that I may come back to you and say, uh-oh,
we can.
you know, this is what's happening, and we keep an eye on that, all of us, with regards to
I
that.
think, for me, when I voted for this, that's what made sense to me, to keep it fluid and buy more time until you could maybe forecast a more normal school year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe something after September made more sense. I guess my personal opinion is, I think we were heading in the right direction of not having a harvest break. That's my personal opinion, but, again, making a vote that's educated, not just weighed on a personal, standpoint. I guess for the good of what Bev is sharing, for community, spirit, and then, what Ben and Giselle would have to arrange by having one thing here and
If it were not for that
One
CTU
thing.
regional calendar requirement, I wouldn't be asking you that. I think delaying to September is the right thing. But I don't want to upset the local tradition
Yeah.
that exists.
Because I agree with Robert. I've been for years that I would have liked to get rid of the harvest. But it's, here is, with Madawaska's not as impacted, but Frenchville St. Agatha is a lot. They got big farmers there, and Fort Kent, I'm not sure, but sure they have more than we have. So, just to be cooperative, if we're gonna work as a tri-district, I would like to see us work all together, and I think that message, I'd like for that to be taken by another school district, that if we're gonna be working together as 3 school districts, we should all be sitting and trying to work together. And, just to take that in the intention that it was meant.
I don't have a problem.
I don't even. Do we want to vote? Do you need a motion?
Motion to just rescind your last.
Rescind the last one and go with the original plan. Tammy moved that we rescind the last one and go with the original plan. Second,
Mr. Tom.
Robert,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Thank you.
I don't think Louis is.
That's okay.
Abstain, okay. Louis abstains. Now we go on to new business.
It doesn't mean anything, but I'm only voting for it to support Ben and Giselle and how they need to manage the school. I'm not for a harvest break, but I'm voting in favor to support those two.
Thank you, Robert.
Historically, the harvest break, I grew up with that, having been born and raised in Volusia County. It was all hand crews. And since they've gone to harvesters,
Such a small percentage.
there's a small percentage of the students that actually go to harvest.
Exactly.
Plus, some of the farmers are harvesting before harvest break.
Yeah.
That's why, it impacts all of us in so many different ways. I get it, and I get the historical part of it, and I get that, but we're a school for the kids. What's it doing to the education? What's it doing to the sports? You can't tell me that when you come in early, you get 4 weeks of education, you get 2 weeks off. When you're coming back, don't tell me you're starting right from where you left off. You've lost, and you've definitely lost on your sports teams. They're not practicing, and there are ways, and I think that was spelled out in that vote on the 10th or the 1st of June. For those that are really harvesting, because the surveys that go out, are you going to harvest? Or are you working during harvest? Yeah, how many of them are working harvest? They might be working for us.
Yeah.
But they're not working in the fields. So that's not a true indication. So those individuals that want to harvest, we should make accommodations for them. I've got no problems with them, doing distance learning while they're harvesting. But those others that aren't working in the fields, we're not doing them any service. We're actually hurting those kids. Let's be honest there.
That's basically why Madawaska went to the split calendar. Because it was it was really, and as you said, the first 3 or 4 weeks of school, and then you let the little kids out for another 2 to 3 weeks, you started all over again. So you might as well not even start in the first 2 or 3 weeks. But at least we were able to split our calendars, which helped. And it'd be nice if the other school systems would look at that. Because I agree with Louis, how many, and Tom, how many people are going to Harvest?
And it, you know, it varies between the three districts. Here it's on the lower end, I believe, Wayne can correct me, it's 15% about, whereas 33, it's, you know, it's closer to 30%. Some of these farmers did speak that, yes, we have less, you know, employees that we need, but, you know, some of them are very, you know, on my crew, 70% of my staff are just high school kids. So they take 11 kids, another farm might take 9, another farm might take 7. So they are relying on the kids. It's just, it's difficult.
But in Wayne's figures, Wayne, did you include the kids that are working at Shop and Save and everywhere else, or just Harvest?
The percentage of kids that went strictly to Harvest last fall was 13%.
I have to agree with you, Louis, like this whole remote learning thing, but like Ben stated, parents don't want that for their students, they want to send them to school. Like if they have to do remote learning or school, they're gonna pull them out, and that's, I mean, we understand the remote learning, and it's hard for some parents to really say like, they're not gonna lose out by doing remote learning, so
Oh, and I get that too, but like Wayne just mentioned,
it's a small percentage.
87% of the kids aren't.
Right.
So they're being punished, not punished, but it's not convenient for them either for 13% that are going. So the 13% that want to go, and some of them have to, don't get me wrong, I understand the economics. Some of those kids and their families need them to go. And that makes a lot of sense, I get that. But the other 87% shouldn't be in that same boat if they would rather be in school. And then you get a longer summer too. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Okay, we'll move on to retirements.
No retirements,
None. Resignations.
no resignations,
Transfers.
no transfers.
New hire.
We do have a new hire, and in your packets, you should have a letter from the hiring committee. We did have interviews for the ELA GT position, which is a position that came out of Matt Rossignol's retirement. When Matt Rossignol retired, Kai Lee was transferred to that position, and Wayne reconfigured the schedule to make it more of a middle school need with the GT piece. So it was advertised as a middle school English language arts position with the district GT. And they did interview 2 candidates last week, Wayne. And the recommendation here is for Teresa Sear to fill this position. Teresa taught here several years ago and then moved on and is coming back if you approve. So the recommendation is for Teresa Sear.
When she left here the first time, it was a cut in position.
So do I have a motion to accept the nomination of Teresa Sear for the ELA GT position?
I'll move that.
Moved by Louis,
Second by
second by Robert. Any discussion or questions for
Where's
Giselle or Ben?
where's she now?
She's a Van Buren, so she'll be leaving Van Buren.
They're coming back here.
Current, no, we need a motion.
We have the
We
motion.
don't
the
have
second.
a motion, we need all those in favor? All in favor. Current openings.
We have no current opening, although we're holding off on posting our bookkeeper position because that will have to be posted. But we're secretly hoping that it's not going to happen and Carol will go back.
It's been posted,
Oh, it's been posted? Oh, never mind.
Oh, so,
but no one's been
That
hired.
was just me praying.
No one's been hired, and yes, we are secretly hoping and praying that she changes her mind.
Have you got that ready, or is she still?
Her last day is next Tuesday.
How long has she worked for the school?
20 years.
20 years?
Already?
yeah, it's too bad to lose her.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, we'll move on to budget meeting, and you know what, you guys, you lied to me. I'm not done. Take this back. The meeting for budget is July 13. Elections are not till July 14.
It gets worse.
Is there something else there that you haven't told me?
last meeting, we did decide that we were gonna go through with a budget meeting and referendum, so we began looking at dates. At the bottom of your packet, you should have this one right here that I delivered to you just a while ago. This is what we're proposing for you all, that we have our budget meeting Monday, July 13th. The meeting will be held at the cafeteria here for the first 50 participants, and then we'll have the overspill here in the library for additional people. I've already spoken with St. John Valley, the outfit that does our live streaming for a lot of our meetings, Chaz Pelletier and Jason. Jason is part of that. They'll be helping with the live stream so that it's a professional setup, not like this, where they're live streaming a Zoom meeting from the cafeteria. The folks that are in here are going to have it broadcast live, not with a lag, like a live stream. And then they'll have a setup where citizens in this room, if they're here, can go to a mic, ask a question to the moderator in the other room. So it'll be seamless no matter if you're in that room or this room. Have a voting box in this room, one in that room, that type of thing. So we're proposing that for July 13. In order to make all of those things work for a budget referendum Tuesday, July 27. And because of these timelines and things are getting tight for when we need to post our warrants, we do need to have a quick 10 to 15 minute meeting next week to sign warrants. See that?
Holy crap, I don't believe this, there's 3 meetings.
So next week we have Monday, the 29th, Wednesday, the 1st, Thursday, the 2nd. I'm proposing 7 a.m. It can be earlier or later. It's totally up to you. But we need to sign warrants.
You know what, for these 3 meetings, I'm coming for dinner.
Oh.
Oh my
Just
God.
need one of these.
Just one.
Just one.
Oh,
Yeah,
not all
those
four.
are choices.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, those are choices.
Oh, they're choices.
They're
Oh,
not,
I
yeah, you're
thought
not
you
coming to
were-
3 meetings.
I thought you were voting 3 meetings.
No, you choose one.
Okay.
Notice how you said 10 to 15 minutes, but in here it says 5 to 10.
Yeah,
You're
I'll
expanding
let
on that
you
all
guys-
the
it
time.
should be 5 to 10.
Okay.
I'll let you guys choose.
Yes.
It's up to you, Ms. Van, or
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, works better for me.
whatever, I don't think.
Monday, what's the?
Monday or Wednesday, sorry.
Monday's
Thursday.
fine.
Monday good?
Monday?
And 7 a.m. good?
Oh,
You had donuts or? Okay,
We'll make arrangements.
have coffee.
just eat.
at least.
So Ben?
Yeah.
Let's go back to the date, the budget referendum. You have Tuesday.
Yeah, it's Monday, sorry, Monday, July 27th, sorry.
I didn't know
Yeah, that was
the
a
date
typo.
of the week was right, or?
It's Monday, July 27th.
Well, that's not Tuesday.
That's Monday.
The budget meeting.
Yep.
On the 13th.
Yep.
What time?
6:30, good question.
6:30,
Yeah,
and we're gonna be here or we're gonna be in the gym? You're gonna
we'll
have
be in the
something-
gym.
And you have something.
Cafeteria?
If there's a-
Yeah, in the cafeteria, sorry, not the gym.
Yeah.
Cafeteria, yeah. Like we usually are. And then we'll count how many of us are there, how many clerks are there, and then we'll allow up to 50 people, and then the remainder will come
And what time's the referendum?
here. Referendums all day long.
Usually 8 to 8.
Oh, no, that's, okay, yeah. Right. Okay,
That's the vote, the referendum is the actual vote.
Yeah.
Is there
Okay,
any formal write-down campaigns for that referendum date or?
It's not formal, but there are a couple of candidates who might. So we will let you know the week before.
We're making buttons.
Will these writing votes be known by early enough for absentee methods?
A write-in candidate, we can't tell anybody what to write in. If you would like a suggestion, we can provide that, but it's not, we're not gonna go out there and campaign.
Right.
I don't think it's appropriate for administration to do that, but we can tell you who might be interested.
Give me a call. I'll be done then.
Can we have a meeting?
Yeah, yeah, we'll have coffee.
So is everyone okay with July 13, 6:30, July 27th, and then next Monday, June 29, 7 a.m.?
Mr. Bishop, I don't know of any campaign. If there is one out there, we don't know about it. It could occur, but it won't be coming from here.
Okay, we'll move on to the Madawaska School Department insurance bids.
Yeah, and you do have some documents for the insurance bids. There were 3 bidders, Maine School Management Association, United Insurance, and FA Peabody. So you have a spreadsheet that Lynn created that shows you the bottom line premium. So you can see that on page 3 of that spreadsheet. But then we did notice that there were some differences in certain lines that may cause those premiums to go up. So there were a list of questions that we asked to the different companies, and you have the question and answer spreadsheet as well.
I think when I was looking at that, my one thing that I looked at is that under communicable diseases, especially since we're in COVID right now, United doesn't have an inclusion in there.
They don't need it,
Oh, okay,
because if you look at the answers to the questions, they replied that currently we do not have communicable disease exclusion.
Mhm.
It is part of your general liability.
But isn't it under that, under another company, under Liberty Mutual or something? I've read something like that.
Well, Bev.
Yeah.
That's an agency. United Insurance is an agency.
Yeah.
Just like MSMA is an agency.
Okay.
And FA Peabody is an agency.
Mhm.
They deal with numerous insurance companies.
But MSMA has the coverage already.
So
What
does
difference is it?
United. It's part of your general liability.
Well, okay, then the other question I have, I don't know a whole lot of that. The other question I have is the deductible. The deductible on MSMA is it 500 in a lot of places, and I don't have anything against United, but under United, it's under some of them, the deductibles are 25,000. Deductibles are a lot higher. So, but I don't understand insurance, so I'm just questioning.
2,500,
Well, it says here,
25,000.
it says flood, oh, well, I'm looking at flood deductible, that doesn't, we're not gonna flood here. But, under, EQ, what's, earthquake,
deductible.
Earthquake. When's the
Yeah.
last time we had an earthquake?
but, well,
Okay, what's your risk?
The general deductible is different, the 500 versus the 5,000.
Look at the bottom line premium too.
Yes.
Now, the MSMA, the total program premium of 50,000, does that include terrorism? Because it's not saying versus United, we can have it with or without, and FA Peabody excludes it at the highest premium.
Yeah.
But United is the least expensive, and we can have it even lower without terrorism, if we have to exclude terrorism. So if you take that into consideration, and even though the deductibles might be a little bit higher, we don't have any claims, we're saving money.
I think that might be one of the questions.
What I was looking at.
Do we currently have terrorism coverage here?
We have cyber, right?
We do have cyber, and I think that we didn't bring the actual documents, but I think that's itemized in here as such, on the second page with the green lines. Cyber liability is in there.
Is that the same thing as terrorism?
Terrorism, from what I was checking in here if it was here, but from what I understand, and it might be under FAP body that said something, but terrorism is only considered terrorism if the federal government says it's terrorism. Is that anywhere in there? I thought I read that somewhere. So terrorism, even if you have someone that goes in our school and, God forbid, does some awful things, that's not considered terrorism.
So we would be excluded at that point anyway.
So
There's-
it's covered.
We are covered now currently with terrorism, is what you're saying?
I don't want to say yes when I'm not sure. I think we are, Louis.
Okay.
But I think that the terrorism, if we're looking at, it depends how you're defining terrorism. If it's cyber terrorism, we're covered. If someone goes into the school and does a mass shooting, I believe we're covered. But it may not be called terrorism per se. We're covered in general liability, but I don't think it's called terrorism at that point.
Okay, because cyber to me is not the same.
Okay.
And in my insurance policies, I think there's a differentiation between the two. Because again, going back to MSMA, for the $50,000 quote that they're giving us, is it or isn't it, is there terrorism included?
I think it's included equal to what the others are.
While the others, if we don't include terrorism in
You
United,
save,
we're saving $3,100.
right,
And FAP body, terrorism is excluded,
correct.
meaning if we want it, we gotta pay more.
Yeah, and I think, is it FAP body that wrote something about terrorism? You see it in your red document, or,
Yes, I saw some.
I thought there was something somewhere, but.
But I just have a question, because I don't understand a lot about insurance, so. Like on page 6, where you have number 10. If the deductible were 500 for property and automobile liability, what would the premium be? MSMA quotes included a $500 property deductible, and the premium was $50,069. Now, under United, they say auto comprehensive and collision, new annual premium would be $64.41.
So their original one is $62.88. So it will go up to $64.41.
Oh, okay, that's, I didn't understand.
It's an itemized,
Okay.
Cyber liability and data compromise coverage, did we have some potential IT issues?
we did, we didn't rise to that level.
It did not rise to that level?
We did not have damages to that level.
Okay.
But I did check with the insurance. We recently had a spat of unemployment insurance false claims. Several of our employees, as has happened around the state.
Downstate.
Right. And I checked with our current insurer to find out what would happen if, you know, their social security number, all their private data is out there. What if this was a breach within our school? We caused it. And we are covered for that, and that's what the cybersecurity would be there. It also covers if you have someone that comes in and causes great damage, which could have happened last time, but our tech department was able to take care of the issue. So cybersecurity is a big concern in public organizations.
you looking to have the bids accepted tonight?
We
Approved
need
tonight?
by July 1st.
Oh, by July first, so that's coming down then.
And what's our next meeting? June 20th.
I need somebody to make a motion.
I don't remember doing this yearly, is this?
It's every 5 years, the law says. The last time that we went through this, Jeanette was superintendent, and we did have an insurer that was not pleased that their bid was not considered, but it had come in late at that point. As an administrator, my greatest concern is the deductible. Every year, I think that I have been here, we have had one claim, at least one claim. We had the flood at the middle school level. We had the roof at the elementary school in the entrance. This year, we had the rubber roof over the gym in the elementary school. And each time, it's been a $500 deductible.
True, but in the savings, you can see in some of these, if you can go without having that claim and not paying the deductible, you save some money.
Yes.
And then my other concern would be, servicing those claims. That's really important. I don't know how MSMA is. I know of the other two, and one of them I deal with, and
Yeah.
I get top-notch coverage.
I don't think any of these companies would be a problem with servicing. We have been very satisfied with the service we do receive. They come right on site. They come and do the measurements, they give us the quotes in no time. I don't think the others would be any different.
Somebody ready to make a motion?
I mean, I guess the lower premium makes sense to me.
Except if you have a claim,
Depending.
then you've made up the difference.
Another thing to keep in mind is the lowest bidder is a local office that pays taxes like everyone else. And that's all I will say.
And helps the school with fundraising, supporting some of the events. No doubt.
So the money stays in town rather than goes out.
I'll make a motion. Can we accept the United Insurance quote for our insurance package?
Make a motion for what, huh?
That we're accepting the United Insurance quote for our insurance package. My only question, do we want, if we're not having terrorism insurance now, if we don't want it, don't need it, I would go without, so we'd have a lesser premium with the 43,000. I'm just not sure where we're at now, and I
Right.
don't know that I got that answer, not to
Right.
put that on you.
Let us look into it as administrators and then make that decision, if that's okay. I think then we can determine if we need the level of terrorism coverage that we currently have.
I mean, unless we could have I'm making a motion and kind of taking it away at the same time, I apologize, but, do we need the terrorism? If we don't need it, let's save the premium. If we've got it and we want to keep it, then I make my motion either way, but I would go with United Insurance as the least expensive.
I think we can look into that and determine if we have it now and do we need it.
Does it have to be 5 years, Susan?
No, we can go out to bid as often as you want, but the law says at least once every 5 years.
So, I mean, it's part of Louis' motion, can that be part of it too, so you have more flexibility?
You can, the school committee at any time can ask us. Before July 1st of next year, when whichever company insures us, you can tell us, we would like you to review that again. we would ask that you ask us in January, because it's a process, but you can ask that anytime.
Or you can ask us
Typically-
now to bring it back to
Right.
next year.
It's not something that you like to do too often, it's quite a process, but it can be done every year.
If you're working with the same company, it might keep things in check too.
If you want us to check that every year, that can,
So premiums on this and everything else.
Well, there's a motion on the floor. Louis says to accept the United Insurance bid with checking into the exclusion of terrorism. Is there a second to that bid, to that
And
motion?
I guess.
Second?
I would second it, but not at 5 years, you know.
Yeah.
Well, the magic number is 1, 3, I mean, just, I guess the balance of things, maybe 3 years, because it sounds like it's a,
Well, can
process
we
where
just include in the motion? Do we review
Yeah, because
it
this
again?
isn't, I don't mean to, this isn't
You're-
included in that motion, or excuse me, the insurance is not, this proposal or this bid is a 1-year bid. And it's just that our procedure is that we go out every 5 years on bid. Right? We're not locking into anything other than 1 year, or are we?
you're not locking in other than 1 year, but you have a choice come next spring to say, we're happy, we're staying with it,
Right.
and you can do that up to 5 years.
Okay.
You can instead say, you know what, we'd like to review again. So that's entirely up to you, but the law says at least once every 5 years.
So you don't need to put that in the motion to be
No,
reviewed again
they can
next
tell
year.
us next
They can-
January if
yeah.
they want us.
Okay.
I'm not trying to figure out, I just want to make sure that. Flexibility before.
Okay, so the motion, reread the motion, Ben, please.
The motion from Louis was to accept the bid for United Insurance. I don't know that you need to include anything else in that motion, because on the business side, we can determine if we need the terrorism insurance or not terrorism. based on our-
Okay.
So that's gonna be the
It's
motion.
also
Okay.
their prerogative to come to the table again.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I second-
Robert, you're
I second-
seconding
I
that?
second.
Louis made the motion, Robert seconded. All those in favor? And okay, now a motion for executive session to discuss the contract and the collective bargaining agreement.
Motion.
Louis moves.
Who?
Second, Robert,
Second,
and it's 4:47.
Thanks for coming.
I'll second.
Moved by Robert, second by Tammy, that we're on a session at 5. And we'll have a motion.
Wait, we gotta open the door because I think the president is waiting out there.
And before we close the meeting, I want to ask you something, Ben.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion from the board on the decisions from the executive session. Motion to ratify the
Or language
teacher's
to read,
contract.
or
No, just a motion to ratify the teacher contract.
I'll move to ratify the teacher contract.
Moved by Robert,
Second.
second by Tom. All those in favor? All in favor.
Molly, please tell the teacher group that we're very pleased with how
Yes.
accommodating the teachers were.
I can tell you it was unanimous without, there was minor questions, we were able to clearly explain it. It went very, they understood and they were in agreement. I didn't twist anybody.
We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Very appreciative.
Well,
thank you.
it's mutual, we work together.
Thank you for that. Now, what I want to bring up is that I thought that when we became tri-community, that we did bring all the communities. Valley Times had an article that 3 people from the Fort Kent board went down to meet with the commissioner. How come there were not people from all 3 boards to go down? Why did they feel they wanted to go down by themselves to bend the commissioner's ear for them?
When that request came through, the information that came from us was we preferred to have the commissioner actually was going to come up here and have a meeting with all 3 boards, and we tried to promote that avenue to happen, that was the best avenue to have collaborative discussions together as the Valley Unified Board or the collective 3 boards. It was SAD 27's board wish at that time, however, that they wanted to ask their own specific questions for their own board and for their own communities. So at that time, they requested that they have their own meeting. So that's when the 3 members were voted as a subcommittee to go meet with the commissioner and requested I schedule a meeting for them. So
Do you think that that promotes 3 communities working together?
I will say that the commissioner during that meeting did more than once say that she would have preferred to meet with all 3 boards, understood that they had their own questions, but she did vocalize that she hoped that moving from that meeting, they had their questions answered, and that future meetings would be collaborative meetings.
Did she make a comment that she would no longer entertain just members from one board to meet with them?
She did not, and I don't think, SAD 27 board members were very open to, you all having your own meeting with the commissioner and 33 having their own meeting. I've since reached out to the commissioner since our think tank the other day. The think tank members did want me to reach out to the commissioner to invite her to a meeting. And she has accepted that. So we're looking at the week of August 17 or August 24. She's looking at her dates right now. And she will be coming up here to meet with the collaborative group.
That's the way it should be done. I mean, to me, seeing that, I'm thinking, what's going on? What is it that they're so concerned that if we're going to work together, 3 communities,
Well,
that
I'm
they
not
can't
quite
share?
sure, babe.
Huh?
I'm not quite sure. That's where, that's turned so political. That's turned so political because they have Troy Jackson and they have John Martin feeding them all kinds of stuff. And who do we have here? I'll be the first one to say I'm not a political person. And if this is going to turn political, maybe it's time that I remove myself and put put somebody who is political, because they're getting feedback from all those people. I mean, the stuff that came out of that meeting, no. If they can't have the ball and play it in their backyard, they don't want to play.
We don't want to play. Well, that's the problem. And my point is that,
They want to go back and rehash everything from the get-go.
We're looking to go back to day one,
well,
day one.
Yes,
to go to site selection again,
The question was brought up. However, and I'm not saying deliberately for that, but the question, and please correct me if I'm wrong, then, the question was brought up because of past experience. This is just one thing, but there was a whole bunch of things. But because of past experience that they've seen at the elementary schools, should we be putting in language now that when enrollment goes down to such and such a level, that elementary school system is shut down? And I don't remember anybody that was here when I was here at one of those meetings. I deliberately asked Ben, I said, at what point with this new school, with the enrollment that continues going down, at what point are we closing our elementary schools? And Ben said at that point, he said, that's a local. Well, the other part of that whole discussion the other day was also looking like making another school board, and based on enrollment and whatever else, that would take away from our local school boards. So instead of having 4 school boards, I think one. Right.
RSU.
One RSU school board, so there would be no more, let's say the high school, we move the high school to the new school, we still currently are saying that we're gonna have our local school
for the
board.
elementary.
That would be gone. That's what was talked about at that think tank. So we would lose local control.
Yeah, so the conversation turned to the RSU and the formation of the RSU, and of course, we all know that our conversations that we've had is about an RSU for Valley Unified Regional High School, which would be a 7 to 12 RSU. What Louis is referring to is, it was mentioned that, hey, we also have the flexibility, by the way, to form a kindergarten to 12 RSU if we so choose. It doesn't have to be just 7 to 12. We can make it a K to 12. And that's where some, especially the 33 members were like, well, no, we've never talked about control over our elementary schools. And that's when Louis shared that he had questioned that as well. So it was something that was brought up as maybe we should talk about this, but I think there was enough dissent from
The seeds are being planted.
So, yeah.
But that's in our strategic plan, that each community will keep its elementary school. Is that point number 2?
It was so strong.
So,
Well,
you can't go back.
It is until you get a new board. Once you get that new board, I'm sure you can change some of those directives, because they'll get voted out.
The strategic plan is what we should all be following.
Oh, I agree with you. I'm
So-
saying, when you lose sight of that strategic plan and you kind of circumvent that whole process by putting in a different board. Because if what they were talking about was no more Valley Unified board, no more local boards having one board, the RSU board. Once that RSU board takes control and they do their bylaws and their strategic planning, anything else would be.
With them having majority vote.
Well, then that's what they were talking.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what, I've got to ask you guys, it's my last meeting, but I've got to ask you guys, what is the option that if they continue acting like, I hate to say the word, but anyway, it starts with A. Why can't we just say, you know, we're done fiddling around here. We gotta move, because if we don't move, we're not gonna get that school. So, Fort Kent, you wanna do what you wanna do?
Go ahead, do it.
Madawaska, Senegat, Frenchville, bring in Grand Isle, let's move on. I'm not gonna have anything to say about it, but that's how I feel, because I'll tell you not, with them wanting majority, I wouldn't even want Madawaska to be in there, because you'll never have anything to say.
Me neither.
You'll never have a vote, because they'll outvote everybody.
I will say, getting back to your original question, the meeting that they requested in Augusta, it wasn't to talk about anything related to Madawaska or 33. It was specific to their own concerns that they had, and I assume that's coming from constituents that are asking that of them. So I think they felt the need that they had to have those things answered. I had provided them a lot of those answers to those questions, but I think they preferred to hear.
Why don't they
directly.
believe you?
Well, it's not that it's
You're
not
the
a
boss.
disbelief, it's just I think, some of the information coming out of Augusta is always tricky to navigate. And, there were emails that they had sent, I had sent on their behalf that were not answered. And Scott Brown has apologized to me, he wasn't able to answer some of those questions. It was always deferred to the commissioner.
Then my whole point is, they've been in this since the beginning.
Agitating.
What is the bitching about? They agreed to everything at the beginning. They agreed to 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. They agreed 17 unanimous on the site selection committee. If that school had been in Fort Kent where they wanted, we wouldn't be having any of it.
Exactly.
So why are we keeping our freaking heads in
And
the sand?
then they said it, because I forget which one said it. We took concessions in some of this stuff, knowing that the school was gonna be in our backyard. Who ever told you that?
Oh, well, that's the problem now. They can't back off.
And let's not forget that the whole issue is the site selection. That's the whole issue. This
That's
is
the whole issue.
impetus
You're
of
right.
everything.
That's the whole issue.
So don't forget, when we had one of those site selection meetings here, it was agreed to, if Fort Kent takes their sites off, Madawaska will take its sites off, because the school will never happen if it's in one of those two communities.
Exactly.
Everybody agreed. But let's also not forget, at the last site selection committee meeting where it was approved, the Frenchville site, we were still debating Fort Kent site at that time. It got resurrected twice.
Mhm.
And they're trying to resurrect it again.
Exactly.
So
And they're
we're going
trying
back to square one.
They're going back to reinvent the wheel. But there was a year of work done by the site selection committee. They had the same representation there that anybody else had. All of this moaning and groaning is because some of the people made promises to some people. And now they're having to back off and they're having to eat crow. Well, let them eat their crow by themselves. Let's move on.
Because at the think tank, the way they were talking, and Giselle and Ben, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if any of what they were talking about moves forward, we're needing a revote. Because we sold the citizens of each community on this is what we're voting on. Well, we're not voting on that. If they change, and we're saying we're going to 410 at this site, well, that whole vote is null and void,
Exactly.
as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that straw poll was not, that was not binding anyway.
No, but it wasn't, might not have been binding, but it was still an indicator. People voted on
On
A,
the site.
but if you're saying it's B,
Yeah.
well, wait a minute, it's a shell game now. You're changing your mind too often.
But that's what I'm.
On the commissioner's side, is there like a deadline or a point where, this isn't gonna work, we're gonna move on from their office? Do they have some kind of silent targeted line where they say, you know what, enough of St. John Valley, or?
So I think the last time we met with her, and it was kind of her to tell us the news that you've got to explore this RSU, if you want this to move
Who
forward.
decided that?
The department, along with the assistant attorney general and the attorney general, and I'm assuming the governor's involved as well. It's looking at school governance, and what's in law right now. An educational service center cannot govern a school in law right now. And so they've told us you can only work with what's in law, and an RSU is in law. Municipal school district like you have are in law, and that's what we have to work
Well,
with.
how come when LePage was there and everybody else before this bunch, that they didn't worry about what was in law?
I think it was a different plan than
Why can't we go with that plan? That's how we started with that plan. Why is it that it's gonna change now?
Change of administration.
That plan would have gone fine if Fort Kent had the school, then no problem. But now all of a sudden, we're gonna be within law.
And the RSU came up because John Martin got involved.
Of course, but
And
they're
Troy Jackson.
being fed. They're being fed. We don't have that representation here. So we need to be careful. We need to be careful. We're gonna get the wool pulled over our eyes. And like I said, I'll be in.
Getting back to Robert's question, so at that time, the commissioner said, as long as you're moving forward and the department sees that you're continuing to make efforts to resolve this, such as our think tank meetings and all of these, then we're fine supporting you and making sure that that project stays.
Do you find we're moving forward? I think we're going backwards. We're gonna start the whole damn process again. Thank God there's no GP on this.
I don't know if we're moving forward, we're moving. And yeah, that thing's on.
But you know, do you know what I would like to, and like I say, I'm not gonna be part of this anymore. But are we strong enough, the other two communities, to stand up and say, hey, guys, get your act together, because we're not gonna sit here and fight around till we lose $100 million. What do you think? I'll come back and haunt you then, I swear to God, if that's, I'm gonna come pick your toes at night or whatever.
Right in July 27th.
I'm gonna come haunt all you guys. Anyway, I said my
Well,
piece.
I can tell you my position. After that article came out in the newspaper,
Yes, I read it.
I was prepared and still am at the next Valley Unified Board meeting to enter a motion to have a recall on the chairmanship of that board.
That I agree with you on.
And I think I've got the support. Because Fort Kent only has 3 members on that board. And we've got the majority vote.
But I don't know
And
if
it will
it's,
be different if he's not there.
oh, you better believe it'd be different, it's not there, if you get kicked out completely. But the thing is, you're gonna vote for a new chairman in the fall anyway. So I don't think there'll be much going on this summer. When does that come up, Ben?
The vote for the chairman is the first
August?
meeting in August or September.
So you can live with July.
That's one
But-
meeting in July.
Oh, Louis, you don't think so? You think there'll be a lot of damage done?
I wouldn't hold my breath, that's for darn sure.
But nothing has changed in this whole process, that each community still has to vote for this to pass. So every town still has to have a vote for this project to even move forward. I know there's straw polls, but there's still a community vote that still has to happen to make it successful. Correct.
Well, if it's in Fort Kent, it will not pass.
Correct.
There is still that lawsuit too, though. Where are we at with the?
That is on a stay, I think they call that. They're waiting to see what happens with this RSU thing. So
They being
the plaintiff, the Valley Unified Concerned Citizen Group, they've asked for a stay, I think is what it's called in the courts, when they're basically saying we would like to hold and see what,
that's the one that Rosendorf filed for.
yes.
So who's setting up the RSU? Who's working on that?
The only way we can enter conversations to form an RSU is if this board makes a motion to approve that we enter that conversation. 33 does it and 27. All boards have to agree and make a motion to begin that process. The think tank is the vehicle to figure out if that's ever gonna happen.
Okay.
And your think tank members, I think, right now feel that it's not in that direction right now based on their last meeting. Yeah, I don't want to speak for them, but that's what I, yeah, but
Well, good luck, guys. I'll figure it out. I think that we're bending backwards to accommodate Fort Kent, because they
I
lost
hate
the
to see the
school.
100 million go elsewhere,
That's what's gonna
but I
happen.
will not vote to approve an RSU.
Well, I think I'd approve an RSU, but not if it includes the elementary, and not if it eliminates the boards, I would, but,
Yeah, but Ben, don't forget, who's gonna have control then?
yeah, well, that's the thing, I would not approve that Fort Kent had 51% of the vote,
So-
because then you might as well stay home and run your own school.
it's important that you realize the formation of an RSU would not be representation from these 3 boards. It would be representation from each member community. So it's forming a new board, but it's using 8 towns.
Yeah.
And it's not SAD 33 and 27, and you're not sending your reps. You're going to New Canada and saying, we're having a vote for membership there. In St. John, in Fort Kent, in Madawaska. And if you look at your community sizes, it's gonna have to have the one man, one vote rule, or the one person, one vote rule. The community of Madawaska is essentially the same size as the community of Fort Kent. So you would probably have equal representation from those 2 larger communities. And then the other communities would have their representation.
But then you take, for example, let's say Wallagrass. Population is probably, I don't know what it is, but is it gonna be a weighted vote? Wallagrass shouldn't have the same amount of vote, or how would I say that? The same authority or whatever.
They wouldn't have as many
As
reps.
Fort Kent and Madawaska.
They wouldn't. They wouldn't. It would have to be represented, your board members would represent X amount of residents that live in your.
Would it be based on, as it is now, community evaluation and population? So Wallagrass.
That's to be negotiated in the RSU formation
Okay.
process,
Okay,
but.
so Fort Kent then would end up with their like 33.9 like they are now, and we'd have 33.6. And Wallagrass might have,
The representation on the board has nothing to do with valuation, it's strictly
Population.
population. And then you can have, there's a choice of having more people, more representation on the board based on, say, there's 1,000 residents in here and 2,000, you can have 2 people there or 1 people there, they both represent 1,000 people. Or you can have 1 member that represents a certain percent and another that represents a certain percent, and every vote is reported based on the percentage of votes that that person holds. So you could have 1 member that is worth 30% of votes and the other one is worth 15.
oh, wow.
That's the way it goes.
The SAD 33 board is actually configured that way. They have a percentage of weight in their vote, based on their
They
chart.
have regions, don't they? Fort Kent? They have
Fort
wards?
Kent, it has wards, so it's a little bit different, but the wards represent
Well,
the same amount
I'll
of.
get
the
that
same
off my
amount of-
chest before I'm done. I'm gonna be in the audience going rah, rah, rah for you guys, but boy, oh boy, I think you've got a hell of a road ahead of you. Like Tammy said, you gotta get somebody who's political.
We have no.
Huh?
We have no.
I know, you have to become that, Tom. It's not going to go
Yeah, but Troy Jackson, doesn't he represent us too?
Well, he's supposed to, but right now he's not. John Martin too.
But that's what I'm saying.
No, John Martin doesn't represent us.
I know, that's what
Danny
he's, yeah.
Danny does what John tells him to do.
Well, maybe we ought to call Danny and tell him to do something different. Okay, okay. A motion to adjourn. I got it off my chest.
She's done.
No, I just noticed there, Ben put some
Monday at
more
7,
meetings.
she's going out with the bang.
But I am taking my.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, so motion to adjourn.
Tammy?
Robert's.
It's 5:45.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for this. I don't know what it is, but.
You like the bag of it?